Downward of the gorge. Now I carried the maid an hour downward of the gorge, as I did say, and I was then grown so weary that I near fell, as I walked, and stumbled every while, because that I had lost somewhat of guiding in my feet, the which did show mine utter alackness. And I saw that I must come very swift to a place for slumber, or that I did be like to fall headlong with the maid, for I nigh slept as I walked. And I began that I give attention to the sides of the gorge, and surely I had gone that hour all in a dream, for I was fresh waked, as it were, in that I did give my will to perceive aught, and when I did come to have power to attend, I knew that I had gone, even as a sleepwalker, for the gorge did seem a fresh matter unto me, and as that I had come awake sudden to find myself a walk in that strange and narrow place. And presently I saw somewhat where I did be, for I minded the memory of mine outward journey, and truly I have a good power to know and remember a way that I have gone. And I saw that there was a great and ruddy fire hole anigh to me, and I was all sure that I had perceived certain caves in the wall of the gorge, near to that fire, as I passed it on mine upward way, and I had been given a mighty longing of heart at that time, that it be given to me that I should bring safe mine own out of the peril that beset her, and have her run to just such a place for her slumber, on the way of our journey backward. And surely I tell you this thing is a child in pleasure, for, truly, it was a wondrous happy matter that my desiring should be like to have a true ending, as, indeed, it did seem was truly to be, if that my memory had set me aright. And I went onward somewhat, and lo! I to be right, for the little caves did be there, a little past the great fire hole, and there were 7 of them on the left side of the great cliff of the gorge, and one did be as that it were very cozy and a place of sure safety, if that we could win unto it. And truly, as I did conceive, we had come safe from the evil forces of that land, but yet did I mind that there was no surety in this thing, and neither did I know but that some monster should come downward of the gorge, out of that land, and so work our deaths, as we did sleep, if that we have no sure place for our slumber. And, indeed, I had wished that we were come a greater way downward of the gorge, but this might not be, for I was all adrift with weariness. And truly, if that we gat upward to the topmost cave, there did be few monsters that should have power to come at us, ere we be warned of their coming. And afterward they should be like to come upward against the discos, and this should be indeed a thing difficult, as you shall conceive. Now it did be needful that I wake the maid, and I kissed her, as she did be in mine arms, and surely the dear one did kiss back again in her sleep, and was yet asleep. And truly I did love her with all my being, and I kissed her again, and shook her very gentle, and so had her to wakefulness, and told how we did be come to a place fit for our slumber. And she to look about, very sleepy, as I set her to her feet, and then to upbraid herself that she did over to slumber, the while that I did labor with her carrying. And, in verity, I kissed her again, as she did stand making to steady herself, and looking so pretty with the sleep that did lie yet in her eyes. And she to kiss me very dear in all mine, and even then scarce proper come to wakefulness, and did say with something of a little dear abandon, that she did love me utter and forever. And afterward, I climbed to the topmost of the caves, and told mine own the while that she walk up and down a little, so that she come to a full awakeness, and this I was careful to, because that she should have a need of all her powers that she come safe upward unto the cave. And when I was come to the cave, lo! It did be so sweet and dry, as did make glad my heart. And there did be a warmth in the cave, as that there went a fire somewhere through the rocks anigh. And the light from the fire hole did make a reflection inward, and so this did seem a place safe, and fit to our slumbering. And I came downward unto Nani, calling that the cave was very proper for our use, and presently I gave her mine aid to the climbing, and so we came in the end safe into the cave, and truly we did feel very safe and happy. Yet, before we did sleep, I set free the scrip and the pouch, and took the straps and went downward again into the gorge, and I gat a good boulder, so heavy as I might carry, and strapped it to my back, and came upward again to the cave, and the maid very grave and anxious, lest that I slip to my hurt. And when I was come to the cave again, I set the boulder in the mouth of the cave, and did balance it so light upon the edge, that a touch should send it rolling downward. And by this devising, I conceived that any beast or monstrous thing that should climb upward whilst that we slept, should be like to set the rock adrift, and mayhaps the rot to work in harm to such, but the chief end to be that I should be swiftly waked by the noise. And then I did turn that we go to our slumber, and lo! The maid had spread the cloak upon the rock, that we should sleep upon it, for truly there did be no need that we have it now to our covering, because that the cave did be so warm as I have told before. And surely, there did be no cause either that I should have the cloak for a bed, for how should I perceive any softness from the cloak, through all the sternness of mine armor? But yet did I see that the maid had made a couch that should be for the two of us, and did be so sweet and natural, and to lie by me, but yet to preserve her sweet modesty, and to do the thing with no thought, save that it was natural to our hearts, and that she did long alway to be anigh to me, but yet, mayhaps, scarce full conscious that her heart did prompt her in this thing. And, in verity, I loved her very dear. And surely, Nani showed me the where that I should lie upon my side, and when I had obeyed, she kneeled, and kissed me on the lips, very sober and loving, and she lay down then upon the cloak beside me, and truly we had both gone to sleep in one little minute, as I do think. Now I did be waked 12 great hours after, by the fizzing of the water, and lo! When I looked, the maid was not beside me, but did make ready our simple eating and drinking. And she laughed at me, very sweet and tender, because that she loved me so, and did be so glad to have me awake to her, and she came over to me, and kissed me, very bright and loving upon the lips. And after that she had kissed me, she kneeled beside me, and looked at me, very dear and tender, so that I knew in a moment that she had waked a while gone, and watched me, somewise mother-like, as I did sleep. But how I knew this thing, I am not sure, save that my spirit did know, or that her thoughts did have tongues unto mine. And truly I needed that I be so loved, and all of you to say like with me, and I put up mine arms to her, as I did yet lie, and she not to deny me, but came into mine arms, and did snuggle there so sweet and happy and gladly, and with so true a delight, that it did be plain how she did love in all her body and spirit to be anigh to me, as I to her. Yet, truly, as you do mind, the armor did be upon me, so that I feared to take her very strong in mine arms, lest I hurt the dear maid, and surely the armor did be a stern matter for her to nestle unto, but yet, mayhaps, did the sternness something please her woman heart, and yet, again, mayhaps to lack. And presently, she made that she would go from me, and I loosed mine arms from her very ready, because that I did heed alway that she have full sweet liberty of her dear maidenhood, and I to be watchful sufficient unto this end, yet always honest and wholesome and not over-pondering even in this my care, and this proper intending you shall ever perceive, if that your hearts do strive to hearken unto my heart, which doth speak alway before you. And the maid went from me, over to where she had put the cup of the water, and the tablets, and I to make to rise, that I looked that the boulder did be safe untouched in the mouth of the cave. But she called unto me that I lie backward, for that she did mean gently to spoil me that once, and that I have no heed to the boulder or whether there did be any monster or beast anigh in the gorge, for that the boulder did be safe as I did balance it, and nowhere's any creature to sight in the gorge, for she had looked oft, since waking, to this end. And truly I obeyed, and lay back, and did like that I should be spoilt, as we do say. And Nani brought the cup of the water, and the tablets over to me, for she gat them from the scrip before I had it to my pillow, in that while when I had gone downward for the boulder. And surely, even when she brought the cup, she would not have me to rise, but took my head upon her knees, and kissed me once very dainty on the lips, and I very happy to be so loved, and wishful no otherwise. And she took a tablet and kissed it and gave it to me, and afterward touched another to my lips, and had that to be for her own. And so we eat and were very glad and happy, someways as children are happy, and our hearts all at ease. And presently, we eat each our second tablet, in the same wise as the first. And truly I did be kissed more than once. And afterward, we drank each of the water. And when we had made an end, Nani told me that I moved to stand, and surely I wondered, and I stood up, and lo! I near cried out with the pains of my bruisings, for I was all gone stiff in my sleep, and as that I did be more sore than ever, and this to be because I had fought again, as you do know, and surely had been hurt more by the four-armed man than I had known. And I perceived then that Nani had supposed that I should be thus pained, and had given dear thought to the matter, and truly she had the pot of the ointment ready, if that I did be very bad, that she rubbed me. And she gave me aid with mine armor, and afterward eased me with my garments, and surely I did be utter bruised in the body, by reason of the violence of the yellow beast man. And the maid had somewhat so tender and sweet in her eyes as she looked upon the bruisings, that I did be very happy and to glow with contentment. And she had me to lie, and made me in comfort with the cloak, so loving and grave, so that I was as a child that doth be cared of by his mother. And she did rub me very skilful and gentle for a great hour, until I was all refreshed. And in verity she was a lovely wise maid. And as the maid ministered unto me, I lay alway very restful, and harked to the low sound of the muttering of the firehole that did be in the bottom of the gorge, and alway I did feel as an happy child that doth be clothed in love and guided in wisdom. And presently, when that the maid had ended her dear care, she put by the ointment, and gave me her hands very dainty, that she mean to aid me to rise, and surely when I was come again to my feet, I was all eased, and to have movement with no great pain, and truly this made me wondrous pleased and to feel new couraged, for I had been troubled that I should be so helpless, in that I did be the protector of mine own. And when I had tried my limbs, and found them to be in command and ready, I looked about for my garments. And lo, the maid brought me my spare body vest, from the pouch, and had it upon her arm, to give to me. But surely she denied me a moment of the vest, and stood before me, and had an admiring and wonder, very sweet and honest, because that my arms did be so great and hard with muscles. And, indeed, I did be very strong, as you have perceived, for I did be alway in affection of the exercises that were taught in the upbringing of all the peoples of the mighty pyramid, and by this explaining, you shall understand that I was like to be strong, but indeed, I owed the straightness and shaping of my body to the mother that bore me. And afterward, in all my life, had I taken pride of my body to be of health and to have strength, and surely this is a matter very fit for pride, and to be told bravely and with honesty. And the admiring of the maid was very sweet to me, and, in verity, I did be to deceive, if that I said otherwise. And in a moment, she dropped my body vest, and put out her hands to me that I take her into mine arms. And I took the maid into mine arms with a great gladness and with somewhat of humbleness that I was nowise good enough to hold her, for my heart was young, and I loved her very dear and youthful. And she did lie there very quiet and happy, a little, and surely I did find presently that she kissed the great muscling of my breast, very sweet and sly, where her face did be press against it. And lo, in a moment, she came free of mine arms, and gave me an aid with my garments, and afterward with mine armor. And when that this was done, she stood off from me, and she looked at me, half shy and half of sweetness and naughtiness. And she came then in a moment, and put her hands upward to my shoulders, and so stood her eyelids something down over her eyes, and did steal a little look up, this time and that. And lo! In a sudden moment, before I did what, she was to her knees before me, and did weep, and I down very swift to kneel with her. And I asked not why she wept, for I perceived that she did have joy and glad happiness and sweet trouble of her man, and that she did be a true woman, and one part of the woman did worship, so that she did be strangely humble and nigh to be shy, and another did love, and need that she be a nigh to me, and a third to have a calm wisdom. And all did now be a tremble, together in her heart, and I knew that I did be truly an hero to her, though but usual to all others. And my heart was wondrous proud and wondrous humble, so that I was in the same moment upraised and to feel dreadly unworthy. But I made no pretending to discredit myself to her, but only did resolve that I win alway her dear respect, and I did be natural and truthful of my manner and without foolish denial of her sweet worship, for she was utter mine own, and it did be a pitiful thing if that I seem otherwise than an hero unto her. But of you I ask kind understanding, and to call me not a thing of conceit because that I did understand, for truly I knew my faults, even so well as you, that do know all of my going. And you to look backward upon the love days, and to mind how that your maid did ever to make you great in manhood with her dear belief and uplooking, and so shall you conceive of all my feelings, for we do be all so human in this matter, and to meet on a dear natural ground, as you will say. And, truly, in a little time, mine own did be steadied, and wiped her pretty eyes, and nestled to me a while, very hushed into need that she be close. And I to have her gentle against mine armor, and to be in my heart is that I did be her father and her lover in the one man, and surely to be silent and joyful that I lived. And presently I slipped her shoes from her little feet, with my right hand, the while that she did rest within my left arm, and I condemned myself that I had thought not more swift to this end, but indeed I had thought upon it while that Nani rubbed me, and had intention this wise, but afterward forgat, as you shall understand, that have been with me alway. And truly mine own did be hurt that I say aught to my blame, and I to cease, but yet to feel reproached by my heart. And when I had looked to the maid's feet, I tied on her shoes again, and we gat together our gear. And afterward we came down from the cave, with a great care, because that it did be so high up in the cliff of the gorge. And afterward, we made downward of the gorge, and had a good care to our going, and so much of speed as we could make, that we come something off from the dark land of the lesser redoubt, so quick as we might. And in 6 hours we had gone very well, and we stopped then that we eat and drink, and afterward, I looked again to the feet of the maid. And I bathed them in a great rock basin of warm water that did be anigh to the place of our eating, and afterward I put the ointment about them very thorough and gentle and for a good while, and so she had some ease and comfort. And afterward, we made onward again, but now we did go pretty easy, for I had considered the notings of mine outward journey, and so did perceive that we should be but 6 or 7 hours off that part of the gorge, where did be the slugs. And I was minded that we rest and sleep, ere that we make through that dire and dreadful place, for that we should be 12 great hours, and more, to go through, and to have no rest or pause, until that we did be safe outward again, as you shall think. And so did we need to be strong and well rested, and this to be wise also for the feet of the maid. Now surely the maid did be in delight of the fires of that part of the gorge where we were come, and she had beside a rest of the soul, in that she had feeling that there did be no evil force to trouble us to our destruction, and I bothered her not yet a while with tellings of the horrid place that we should to journey through in a while, as you do know. And so we did go, and alway with a good caution, lest that some beast or creature should come upon us, and alway with the fire holes before and behind, and in the air of the gorge the little whistlings of steam that did spurt out in this place and that, and a good warmth in many parts, by reason of the fires, and odd whiles a smelling of sulphur, but not greatly, nor to our trouble. And alway the low muttering of the fire holes and pits, and the red lights, and the dancing of the shadows when that we did go by a fire pit where the fire did frisk and burn lively. And upon either side, the grim walls of the gorge going up measureless into the night. And so we were gone presently, pretty comfortable, for 6 good hours, since last that we eat, and we made halt, and eat and drank, and I showed the maid how that we should make a short journey that day, and sleep, and so be ready to the horrid journey through the dark part of the gorge, where the slugs did be. And we made search then, that we have a safe place to our slumber, and surely I perceived where we did be, for we came upon that same cave where I did sleep after that I was come free of the slugs, and that we were come no farther, doth show how easy did be our present going, and this you do know. And there did be the spring where I washed, and the fire hole and I, and truly they were not like to be gone away, as you shall say. Yet did we exclaim, very natural, for the maid did be so deep an interest of the matters of my coming, and to be at once that no other place should serve for our rest and slumber. And, indeed, this was a natural thing, and the place so good as any, save that I did wish it had been upward unto a high place of the gorge, as you shall understand. But yet might we block the mouth part of the cave with boulders, somewise as I did before, and so to have a defense against anything that should make to enter upon our sleep, or at the least to be waked by the falling of the boulders. Now mine own went inward of the little cave, which did be very light from the fire pit that was to the front, but before that she did go, I made a swift search of the place, that there should be no creeping thing, and truly it was sweet and free. And the maid did be strangely taken that she should come to the veritable place where once I did lie on mine outward way, and truly I do understand, and so shall many that do have these feelings about matters. And afterward, we went unto the hot spring that was in the hollow of the rock, anigh to the fire pit. And I saw that there did be no snakes, neither any of the rat things anigh, and so I had the maid to sit very comfortable on the side of the pool, and I freed her shoes, and bathed her feet, and afterward rubbed them very steady with the ointment, and so for a good time, and alway to keep a looking out upon the gorge. And presently, when that I had taken a loving care of her pretty feet, I tied the shoes again upon the maid, and so back to the cave, and the two of us to carry boulders, according to our strength. And when we had a sufficient, we builded a rough and clumsy wall, after that we were gone into the cave, and the wall rose nigh to fill the mouth of the cave, and made us to be somewise in darkness, but yet to feel in safety. And I had a good heed to make the chinks of the wall very close in the bottom, so that no small creeping thing should come through unto us whilst that we slept. And afterward, Nani set the scrip and the pouch to be for my pillow, but had the bundle of her torn garments to be for her own purpose. And I perceived that she had the water powder and a pack of the tablets to her hand for our waking, that she might prepare our food, and mayhap to wake a little before me, so that she have all ready to greet me from my sleep. But, indeed, I said not to show that I knew, for I saw that this thing did give her a dear pleasure, and truly it was very sweet to have her to these gentle duties, that did be to her so sure and quiet a delight. And mine own bade me that I lie, and she put the discos upon the outward side of me, to mine hand, and with a dainty and fearful touch, for the weapon did be very dreadful unto her thoughts, but yet a comforting thing to abide for our defence. And afterward, she covered me with the cloak, and kissed me very sedate upon the lips, and then to her own side, and to come very nice and happy under the cloak, and so to her rest. And presently she did sleep, as I perceived by her breathings, and surely it did seem to my spirit that she had an utter and dear content in this arranging of our slumber, so that she did be all at peace in all her being, because that she did be nigh unto me, that did be her own love. But, indeed, I could not sleep for a time, and surely, in a while, mine own did nestle unto me in her sleep, so sweet and dear as a child, and likewise as that it did be her right to be so anigh unto me, and I to be that I should put mine arms about her, but indeed I moved not, neither did I kiss her, as I did wish, for truly I should be very manly with mine own maid that did be so trustful and utter mine in her sleep. And presently I was over unto slumber also, and stirred not for 8 good hours, and did wake then to the hissing of the water, so that I knew mine own was awake before me, as she had planned, and was making ready that we eat. And when she saw me move in the half-light, she gave out a little word of joy, that I did be again to knowledge of her, and she came over, and put her arms about my neck, and kissed me very loving, thrice upon the lips. And, in verity, it came to me in that moment that I had been kissed a while gone in my dreams, but scarce to know it, yet I perceived now that mine own had taken a naughty advantaging of my slumber, that she kissed me to her own pleasure, yet did the maid say no word of her naughtiness, and I to be likewise, but to resolve that I waken, mayhaps, on the next time, and so catch her in her sweet and secret delight of me. And, truly, this doth sound quaint, but to be true. And I rose, and took down the half of the wall that did be across the mouth of the cave, and afterward looked out, but there was no sight of any horrid thing in the gorge, save that one of the rat things did slumber, very gorge seeming, upon the side of the little fire hole. And afterwards, we eat and drank, and the maid then to rub me, as before, for I was greatly stiff on my waking, as you shall think, but she came not into mine arms presently, as I did hope, but only kissed my shoulders, when that she had finished, and so bid me to dress. Yet, after that I was dressed, and had mine armor full upon me, she must come unto me, and she slipped her 2 small hands into the one of mine, and so stood by me, very silent. And sudden she put up her lips very quiet and passionate, that I should kiss her, and she kissed me once, as it did be as that her spirit kissed mine, and all her being came unto me, and she gave me but that one kiss, and afterward slipped her hands very gentle from mine, and made to the gathering of our gear. But truly, I that loved her so great, knew that a tumult of love did be hid in her heart. And, indeed, she looked once at me in such wise, that I grew near to a true humbleness of heart because of the honor and love that did be in her eyes. And surely, it is a very little thing to die for such an one as mine own did be. And by this saying, shall you perceive my heart in that moment, and that I did pant, as it were, that I do some deed of love to show my love. And truly this is but a natural desiring in human, and the cause proper to the uplifting of manhood. And surely you shall all mind you of such feelings in the past love days, that I do pray should be never past. And when we had our gear together, I left it in the cave, and took mine own over unto the hot pool that was anigh to the fire pit, and she to exclaim upon the rat thing that did be yet a slumber upon the side of the fire pit, and I to say that the thing did be no cause for fear, but rather, indeed, a good friend, in that it was a devourer of snakes, as you shall mind. And while that we talked, I bathed the little feet of Nani, and surely, as I dried them upon my pocket cloth, I was taken that I should kiss them, and surely I kissed them, and they did be very shapely and dainty, and all eased of travel by the care that I did take to this end. And afterward I rubbed them with the ointment for a good while, and so had them again into the shoes, and the maid very quiet, after that I had kissed her feet that did be so dainty, but yet with a sweet naughtiness in her way, as my heart perceived, though she did nothing, neither said anything, to this end, and was truly very obedient, and orderly to all my wishes. And we went back then to the cave, and the maid put the pot of the ointment back into the pouch, and she buckled the pouch and the scrip upon me, and the discos I had upon my hip, for I went nowise anywhere, without it, as you shall suppose. And she had the little bundle of her clothing for her burden, and truly, I was ready that she should carry so much, for we did be to act wisely, and she well able to carry so small a thing, and I better to have my hands alway free to the discos and to the needs of the way. And we went downward of the gorge at a strong speed, for there did be somewise of 15 hours good journey, ere that we come out upon the far side of that place where the monsters did be, and this did be 3 hours to the upward beginning of that place, and 12 hours journey then, in the least, that we should take to go through again into the light of the gorge below. And this I did reckon from my notings of mine upward journey, as you do know. And I made all clear to the maid, of the thing that did be before us, and made not to hide the danger and horror, but yet to make not over much of the same. And she to walk close beside me, very sweet and trustful, and to say that she feared not, so that I should be there to have care of her, but only that she did fear harm for me, and yet to have confidence that I should slay all hurtful things that should be like to trouble us. And, truly, I did kiss her for her dear belief and love. Now, in the middle part of the 3rd hour, the air of the gorge did begin that it was heavy, and to have a seeming of fumes that stang something upon the throat, odd whiles. And there were presently less of the fire-holes, and soon, as we did go the more downward, the beginnings of a great gloom, and to have smoke therein that made us to feel husky. And in the end of the 4th hour, we were come truly far downward within the gloom, and to be as that we groped in a fog of distaste, and to know not how we went with any surety, for oft there did be an utter darkness about us, and a while the shine of a dull glowing fire pit upon our sight, that did show us the gloom and dread of that place. And we went alway very hushed, and the maid to my back, but I did halt now and this time, and make to know how she did be, and surely she whispered very brave to me through the dimness, and once did slip her hand into mine, and I to take off mine armored glove for a little moment, that I hold her hand, and give her nice assurance. But, in verity, there was terror in mine heart, that did be a terror far beyond the trouble of mine upward way, and surely I was shaken newly with every danger, lest that I should lose mine own, were she to come to any hurt. And, indeed, you shall perceive how I did be, for so should you be in a like case, and, in truth, it doth be in utter anxiousness and suffering. Now when we had been 2 hours in the dark part of the gorge, I smelled of the dread and horrid stink that you do what of. And surely a great fear came upon me, for I perceived that we did come among the monsters, or that one came anigh to us. And I whispered unto the maid that she halt, and we stood very hushed a while, and surely the stink did grow, and to be very dreadful in the nostrils, so that I felt mine own made to shake somewhat with the fear and disgust that this thing did make in us. And presently the stinking did ease somewhat from about us, but whether there had gone past us a monster slug, I have no sure knowing, for there did be no fire pit anigh to that place, so that there was a great darkness all about. And surely there was a great slowness and wetness of the air, and dismal drippings that made desolation in the silence, and the feel of strange growths upon the boulders, as you do know, and often horrid slime and dankness, and the stink to be everywhere, so that we knew a constant disgust and fear. And alway the fumings of sulphur, that did seem, in verity, to beat down upon us, utter heavy and sore upon our lungs. And so went we onward amid the smell that did be as of dead things, and oft did we make pause and hark, and had a great care as we did go by the dull fire holes and fire pits, that we should make no showing of ourselves in the light. And sudden, as we did go by a great pit that burned very deep and red, I reached back and caught mine own by the arm, and I set her gaze unto the right side of the gorge, which was beyond the fire. And the maid went very still, as she did see the thing that was there, for in verity it was utter monstrous, and did shine very wet looking in the light of the fire. And truly it moved a little with the head, this way and that, stretching through the dark and the shadows, as you shall see a slug to move, and with no speed or sound, and nowise seeming heedful of aught. But yet did I fear that it smelled us, if this might be, and this, as you shall think, to be a very natural fear. And alway, as I do mind, it seemed to go blindly somewise, or to have that slow and strange moving that doth make one to think of a blindness, but whether it did be truly blind, how shall I say, only that it was an utter monstrous brute, so great as the black hull of a ship, and very dreadful unto our hearts. And we moved not for a while, save that I pulled mine own down into the hiding of the boulders of that part, and she to put her hand very anxious unto me, yet not to be comforted, as I did have to think, but to persuade me, lest that I go to some adventuring that should set me in a surer danger. And this I perceived in a little moment, and loved her for her care. But, indeed, I had no mind to aught, save that we come clear of that place, and I watched the monster, through places between the boulders, and surely, in a little while, it swayed the great head very slow and quiet unto the cliff that did make that side of the gorge, and the brute set unto the cliff, and began that it went upward with a strange moving of muscles that did go wavewise under the wet and horrid gleaming hide. And so, in a little time, it was gone quiet against the cliff, and the head part did be upward in the darkness above, so that it did be from our sight. But the monster body did be plain for a great way, and was seeming clung to the cliff, and to come downward out of the dark, as that it did be a great black ridge of soft and dreadful life upon the face of the cliff, and the tail was something less bulked, and to taper, and did trail outward into the gorge upon the boulders. And surely the thing did seem as that it slept, but that odd whiles the tail did lift a little off the boulders, and curl somewise, and afterward come down again upon the boulders, mayhap in this place and mayhap in that place, as we did watch, all hid. And it was as that our sense and our spirits did assure us that the thing had no wotting of us, but surely our fears did nigh to equal the comfort of this sweet reason, and to make us think otherwise. Yet, in a time, I made that we go forward together through the spaces that did be among the boulders. And I went creeping, and the maid to follow likewise. And oft I did pause, and made a watching upon the monster, but truly it moved not, save as I have told, and I kept a great heed upon the maid, that she follow alway close unto my feet. And in the end we came safe from that place where the monster did be clung unto the great cliff in the night. And we went then for 2 great hours without adventure, save that once the maid touched me that we pause, for that something went by us where we did be in an utter dark place of the gorge, and no fire hole anigh. And I knew that the thing did be near, even as the maid touched me. And caught I the maid in the dark, and thrust her under the side of a boulder, and I crouched then before her, with mine armor, that I should protect her from any brutish thing. And the discos in my hand, and afterward in horrid time of waiting. And the stink of that part of the gorge grew very dreadful, so that it did be as that we should not breathe, with the horror of the stink. And there went past us some horrid and utter monster, that made neither sound nor anything, save that there seemed a strange noise that might be the breathing of a great thing, but yet did be all uncertain, in that the sides of the gorge cast the sound this way and that, in an horrid whispering of echoes, so that we did not know whether the sound be made nigh to us, or afar upward in the eternity of the night, where I did suppose the mountains to be joined over the gorge in a monstrous roof in that part. And presently, the strange noisings died in the upward height, and all about us, and the utter disgust of the stink went from us, so that we knew that the monster had gone past us, and did make downward through the dark gorge, and mayhap then to some lone and dreadful cavern of the world, as I did think. And, indeed, as I do mind, I had a sudden wonder at that time, and other whiles, as it did chance, whether this way did be truly the olden way that the peoples of the lesser refuge did travel in the olden days. And surely, as I did suppose, they had come some other way, or the gorge to be different and less dreadful in the far-off years. And this thing you shall agree with me to be a reasonable thinking. And after that the monster had gone a good while we went onward again, and with a great caution, and dreading alway lest that we come upon that monster in the darkness, but yet did we know by smell, and by all our consciousness, whether that we came nigh unto one of the monster slugs. Then, in the end of the 5th hour in the dark part of the gorge, we came by the mouth of that great cavern, upon our left, and you to remember the same. And I made pause in the darkness, and had the maid very gentle by the arm, that she should look with me. And I whispered how that I passed this place, to my right, upon mine upward way, and how that I did think there to be a plenty of monster caverns within the mountains that made the sides of the gorge, and that, mayhap, the slug creatures had their home in such places, or came up, it might be, from some utter strange deepness and mystery of the great world. And the maid did bide very close unto me, and silent, whilst that I whispered, for the terror of the place did be on her, yet not to make her lacking of courage, but yet to put a monstrous awe upon her and a great and natural fear, and I likewise, as you do know. And we stayed there, where we did be, a little moment, and looked downward into the bowels of the monster cavern, and the shine of the firehole beat over the cavern in the near part, but there did be an utter mystery and deathly dark beyond the shining of the pit that did be within, as you shall remember. And, in verity, as we stayed but to glance, I perceived that there lay humped things about the fire, and some to be black seeming, and some to have a seeming of whiteness, but with no sureness in the colour to mine eyes. And there came a moving in one of the humped things, so that it did be as that an hill did wake unto an horrid life. And immediately I knew that the humps did be some utter monsters, mayhaps even the great slugs, a slumber about the fire pit that did burn in that strange deeply cavern. And I saw that I did ill for our lives, that I should pause even for a little moment to such staring. And immediately I whispered to mine own that we go with all our speed, for, indeed, I knew not whether that our nearness had waked that monster, or whether that it had but waked by chance. And truly, I was utter eager that we be gone from that place, so swift as we might. And we went on then through all of the 6th hour that we did be in the slug part of the gorge, as I named it unto myself. And in all that hour, there did nothing harmful come anigh, only, as I did know presently, there came an unease upon our spirits, but yet to be very little at that time, and we to be scarce knowing of it. And alway, as we went, there did be darkness for the most, and odd whiles a vague murmuring of the night far above, as it did seem, and presently the dull glare of a fire pit to shine out far off below us in the gorge, and to seem very dim and unreal unto us, by reason of the smokes and the fumes that made a haze and a distaste in the gorge. And presently, the murmuring of the night to grow somewhat, and, afterward, the sound of the muttering of the fire pit to come unto us, and the murmuring to die unto our ears that did be hearing now only the dull muttering, and so we to know that the murmuring of the night did be truly the far-off muttering of the fireholes, and our eyes to guide our hearing, and our reason to explain and knit the sounds, and so we to pass by the firehole with a great quiet and caution and ever with watchfulness, as you shall suppose. And afterward again into the dark, and presently again the murmuring, to tell that we came unto another of the fire pits, that was yet afar off in the gorge, and made dim echoes in the night. And alway we went very watchful, and in grim fear, but with steadfastness and good intention to win forth out of that desolation and horror, and having always so great a speed as the darkness and the dangers and the trouble of the way did allow. And in this place I will make explanation why that I speak somewhiles of fire pits and otherwhiles of fire holes, for the holes did be those fires that burned nigh to the brim of the holes, but the pits were those places where the fire was deeply in the earth. And this thing I give for your enlightenment, even on a small matter, so that you shall have a clear knowledge to abide with me all the way, and you to agree of this for wisdom, and I to be pleased that you so agree. And here also, I should tell that there did not come a muttering from all of the fire holes and the fire pits, but mayhap from this one, and mayhap not from that one, according to the way of the fire therein. And this shall be plain unto you. And so shall you see us go, and the smoke and the bitterness of the sulphur to be all about us, and odd whiles the murmuring of a far-off pit, and off the utter silence, and to pass this time a lonesome fire hole, and afterward the utter dark, or the half-gloom, all as might chance, according to the nearness of the fires. And upward in the everlasting night, the grim mountains to make a roof over us, as I did suppose. And all this while did the unease, of which I have told, make upon us, so that, presently, mine own whispered unto me the thing that already my spirit did have to perceive, that there came after us through the night some harmful thing, that did be surely no great way off, as I did feel within me, and the maid to have a likewise belief. And, truly I thought at once upon that brute that did wake downward in the mighty cavern, where did be the great inward firehole, as I have told, but whether this did be true knowledge that we did be chased in the dark by that thing, or whether there came after us some other monster, I could have no sureness, but only that we did be chased, and of this I had assuredness. And I set the maid before me, that I have myself ready to the danger that followed, and we made forward again then, so quick as we were abled, and she went very wisely, for she had good wit and had noted the ways of my leading. And we went thus until the end of the 7th hour. And surely, in that time, we heard the murmuring in the night which told of a firehole somewise before us, and soon to have the red glare plain to our eyes, and the noise of the murmuring to die away into the nearer mutter of the fire, and so presently to be anigh, and we to make forward with a good speed, because that we feared utterly the thing that made quiet chase of us through the night. And oft I did look backward, and smelt the air, that I know whether it did be a monster slug beast that chased us, but there did be no worseness of the smell, to tell me aught. And alway, I did be fretted in the heart, that we could make no greater speed, but, indeed, as you shall perceive, our going did be but a slow thing in the dark places, and even thus we had many a sore tumbling and bruising. And by this, we were come almost unto the firehole, and immediately, I saw that I knew the place, for there went upward beside the fire, a great jaggedness of rock, that I had seen upon mine upward way. And surely, I caught the maid in an instant, and bent her, and she quick to obey with her body. And we were both immediately hid downward among the boulders. And this I did, because I minded how that there did be many of the monsters nigh to this same firehole, as I did go upon mine upward way. And we went forward then with an utter care, but yet to keep onward, because that there did be someone in chase of us. And, in verity, when that we were come opposite unto the firehole, I saw that there did be 7 of the monster slugs against the far side of the gorge, and did be all set upon their bellies against the cliff, and their horrid heads to be hid in the upward dark, and their tails to lie very great and soft seeming in the bottom of the gorge, upon the boulders. And, lo! The maid touched me, and she drew me to look upon the near cliff of the gorge. And truly there did be 3 of the brutish things laid upward there, and a 4th did be humped somewhat upon a great ledge that did be upward of the gorge, and just to be plain to our eyes. And surely, it was as that we did be all surrounded by such monsters, and to make the heart sink, and fear to lie upon our hopefulness. But, indeed, the maid showed a good spirit, and I to have fierce determining that we come free of that gorge, and afterward, in time, unto our mighty home. And we made forward again, and did go creeping among the rocks and the boulders, and so came presently past that place, and had not waked the monsters, if that indeed they did truly sleep. And I made halt a moment upon the far border of the light from the firehole, and I looked backward up the gorge, perchance that I should see the thing that followed us. But, indeed, there came nothing out of the dark of the upward gorge, so that I knew that there did be some safe space to our backs, which did be truly a comforting thing. And here I should tell how that there was no great stinking in that place where did be so many of the slug beasts, and this to puzzle me, and in the end to make me think that some of those horrid things did stench more great than others, but yet I to have no certainty in this matter, as you do perceive. And, truly, this thing troubled me, for I had been comforted that my nose should tell me when that the thing that made chase of us should draw nigh in the darkness, and now, in verity, I knew not what to have for assurance, for the awareness of the spirit was but a vague thing, and no more in such a matter, than a feeling as of an inward warning. And we went onward then for a great hour, and with an horrid unease upon us, and thrice we did go by fire pits in the darkness, and alway I made pause upon the far side of the light, that I should look backward, but did have no sight of aught, yet did my spirit or my fears warn me with new fear, and a greater sense of nearness, and the maid to confess also to this thing. Now, we saw not any of the slugs for a long while, neither had there been any about the 3 fire holes, and the air of the gorge was grown something sweet and free somewhat of the stench of dead-seeming things, but yet to be very bitter with fumings and smoke and sulphur stinks. And lo! In the middle of the 10th hour, as we did go, painful and with anxiousness in a very dark place of the gorge, there came unto us again the smell that told to us that one of the monsters did be anigh. And surely we had both a great fear, in that we had belief that it did be a sign that the thing that made chase, did draw near upon us. But yet did I to use my reason also, and to know that the stink might be from some monster that we were come nigh to in the darkness of that place, and I whispered this unto the maid, and she to say, very hushed, that it might be so, but to have no belief, and I to be likewise, as you do see. And we pushed forward at a new speed, and had many bitter falls, so that we did be all bruised, but not to know it at that time, because that our fear did be so keen. And oft we made a little pause and harked, but there did be only the dismal drip of water from on high, and presently the murmur of the night, that told that we drew near unto a new fire pit. And surely this was a great easement to our spirits, in that we should have liked to perceive our danger, and mayhap to win free. But to be in that utter dark, was a thing to break the courage, and to breed belief that we did be utter helpless, and all wrapped in horror and despair. And the stink grew ever, as we made forward, so that I knew not whether there did be great monsters beside the fire pit that was to our front, as I have told, or whether it made plain the advancing of the pursuer. And we only to be able to make our best speed, and to be weary with hope that we rush not blind into death, and alway to be chilled in the back with the belief that the thing that made chase did be very close in that utter dark, and to gain upon us. And we knew not whether to make our belief to be the tellings of the Spirit or the utterings of our fears, and so shall you perceive our plight, and we but to be able to make forward. And, in verity, the dreadfulness of that time doth shake me now to think upon, and you also, if that you have gotten my tellings to your hearts, so that your human sympathy doth be with me. And there came presently to our ears the far mutter of the fire pit, so that very soon the murmuring was lost to us in the night, and only the slow mutter to be plain. And the dull looming of the fire shone afar off, through the night in the smoke and fumings, and we to a great speed, and to pant with fear, but yet with a freshness of hope again to sweeten us. And we came nigh to the fire pit, and lo! The smell did be grown very drear and foul, but there did be no slug beast near the fire. And by this, we perceived that we did be truly in an utter danger, in that the pursuer did be upon us, and the stinking to tell this to be truth, and our spirits to have warned us very strong and proper. And I stopped near to the fire pit, which did be great, and very red glowing, and I looked upward of the gorge, into the night of the gorge that we did come from, but the monster was not yet upon us to work our death. And I looked to the sides of the gorge, and the maid to have the same thought that did be mine, that we climbed the mountains that made the sides of the gorge. And I looked very keen first to this side, and then did run overward, that I looked more close upon the other, and afterward back again, for it did seem that we should have a greater ease upon the side that we did be. And I asked the maid whether that she did be prepared, and she to be very white and wearied, and all besmirched with the dankness and growths upon the boulders and the hidden pools of the gorge and the dripping of the waters, but yet did she be sound in her courage, and to show that she had all belief and abiding in me, and her judgment likewise to be with mine, in that her own reason did approve. And I took the bundle of her torn clothing from her, for it did be at her girdle, and like to trouble her movings, but she to refuse, very determined, in that I did be already overburdened. And I to be firm in my deciding, and to make her to yield the bundle, the which I hooped unto the hold of the discos, where it did be to mine hip. And the maid to be there, a little figure, and white in the face, and strangely angered, and her anger mixed with hidden acknowledgment that I did be her master, and have to be minded that she moved not from where she did stand, and part to be reasonable and fearful of the hidden beast, and in part also to thrill in her womanhood unto the man that did be so masterful unto her. And all to pass in a little moment, and we to be to the gorge side, and busied very eager to the climb. And the maid to be first, as I did heed, and I to follow, and have constant looking to the task and to her safety, and alway to be bitter anxious for our speed to be good, and to be anxious the more then, lest that mine own should slip, for there did be an horrid wetness upon the sides of the gorge, as you shall have guessed, and horrid growths that blotched the great rocks mightily, and made an utter slipperiness, if that they did be trod upon, and we to have to come so clear of all such matters, as we might, and yet to be speedy for our lives, and likewise to lack no care and thought to the setting of our hands and of our feet in places fitted to the lifting of our weight. And truly you shall see that we went very desperate, and I to give word to the maid that she look not downward, the which I was urgent upon, lest that she come giddy in the heart. But I, as you shall think, could scarce to keep from fearful peerings below, so that I learned speedy whether the pursuer did come yet into the light of the fire-hole, beneath. And presently, the maid did gasp very weak and troubled with the soreness of the climb, and I came higher, and set mine arm about her, as we did be there upon the face of the cliff, and she stopped very still a little while, and an ease did come to her, and an assurance of safety. And surely, I kissed her there where we did be in that upward place, and her lips did tremble unto mine, and her courage and strength to come back into her, so that in a minute she did make once more to the climbing. And we came presently to a place where a great ledge did be, that jutted out from the mighty cliff, and was surely a huge way above the gorge bottom. And the ledge sloped, and there were on the ledge great stones and boulders that did make lodgment there through eternity. And I looked very careful to our way, and saw that we did be in the path of a mighty rock that was overnigh unto the edge of the shelf place, and did put fear upon me, in that it seemed that it should come down with great thundering upon us, if that we but shook the place where it did be. And I caught the maid very swift and gentle, and shaped our path unto one side of that great rock, and did presently lose my fear, when that we did come safe from under it. And in a minute after, we were come upward upon the ledge, and a very safe place it did seem, and surely as that no monster should be able to come upward upon us. And this I did try to make for comfort unto ourselves, but that we both to know how that the great slugs could lie up against the sides of the gorge, and surely it did be like that they should be able to come upward clear of the gorge, and so to the place where we made to have safety. And I had no thought to deny this thing, when that it was clear to my brain, but set rather that we should have some way to fight the monster, if that we did be discovered. And I thought in a moment upon the stones that did be about, and the maid in the same moment cried out that we should push the big rock down upon the slug that we believed to have chase of us, and indeed, the rock to be a great weapon, if we could but stir it, as you shall think. And alway, as we talked, very hushed, we looked downward into the deepness of the gorge, unto the upward end of the firelight, but there came no thing yet unto our knowledge, only that the stinking did rise up to us through that great distance. And the fire pit to seem now a very small burning, and to give no great light up to us, and we neither to be able to see very clear of the gorge bottom, in that the haze of the fumes and the smoke was in the air of the gorge, and made uncertainty, and we to be nowise proper free of the smoke, even where we did be. And we watched, very set with anxiousness and fearful expecting of the monster, and did be both yet lost of breath, and the maid that she made her words something broken for a little while. And lo! In a moment, Nani cried out very low and sharp that the thing did come, and I to see a moving of somewhat, in the same instant, in the gorge that lay upon the upward side of the fire pit. And immediately I saw the great and monster head of the beast come forward into the shine from the pit, and the head did be of a blotched white, and to have the eyes upon great stalks that came from the forward part of the head, and the stalks to be set downward, so that the eyes looked upon the bottom parts of the gorge. And surely this doth be very horrid seeming to the mind of this age, but yet to have a less strangeness unto the two of us that had seen many horrid sights, as you do know. And as the monster came forward the more into the light, I saw that the great and utter mighty bulk did be all of that same whiteness, that did be so set over with blotchings and a seeming of unhealth. But, truly the colour was proper to a creature that did abide in so great a darkness, as you shall say, yet had those slugs that we did see, been black and shining, for the most, as I have told, and this to be as I saw, and I not to heed here that I try unto explainings in this place, else should I be never eased of my task, as you do see. And the monster slug came onward, and as it did go, it set the stalks of the eyes in among the boulders, as that it did search, swayed now this way and now that way, from side to side of the gorge, and alway it pushed the stalks of the eyes inward among the boulders, and so to go forward, searching. And truly it was very dreadful to see the thing make search for us, and to go so steadfast to so dread a purpose. And, indeed, I saw it not so plain as might be, because of the haze of the fumes and the smoke that did lie in the air of the gorge, as I have told, and made something vague the sight at this time and that, but yet we did both see a strange thing, for when that the great white body did become half into the light, the slug beast set out a big tongue among the boulders, after that it did peer thereunder, and the tongue did be very long, and white, and something thin seeming, and the monster lapped inward in a moment a great snake from among the boulders, and the tongue did hold upon the snake, as that there did be surely teeth or roughness upon the tongue, but yet the distance to be too great for any surety of the sight, as you do know, and moreover, there did be the uncertainty of the haze within the air. And the slug took the snake inward, all as it did lash and wriggle, and swallowed it in a moment, and, in verity, that snake did be a big and horrid creature, else had it been not so plain to our sight, but it did be as a worm unto the monster, and gone instant. And immediately, the slug beast went again to searching, and the head to sway from this side unto that side of the gorge, and by the wideness and ease of this swaying shall you perceive the utter greatness of the beast. And alway, as it did come downward of the gorge, it thrust the stalks of the eyes inward among the boulders, looking all ways, and oft the breath did come from it, as a cloud, and the stink to rise up unto us, very plain and an abomination. And again, we saw the beast set the tongue in among the boulders of the gorge bottom, and it licked forth a snake that did seem so thick as a man in the body, and the snake to thrash in the great white tongue, and to be immediately drawn inward, and gone utter. And surely, as the thought did stir in me, there did be a great mercy over us, in that we did not die by such a serpent in some dark and horrid place of the gorge. But yet, as it is like to be, mayhap the snakes did be only a nigh to the fireholes, yet doth it be anywise a wondrous thing that we had come so free of them alway, and truly to learn, was to be given a new terror. Now the monster was come fully into the shining of the fire pit, and was upon this side, and the fire to make a shining against the side of the slug, so that odd whiles I did perceive very plain the huge wrinklings and muslings of the skin, as the beast made onward. And alway it did search, thrusting in the eye stalks among the boulders. And sudden, it made pause, and did begin that it brought all the mighty body together, and humped itself, and brought the head part round unto the bottom of the cliff that made this side of the gorge. And it gathered itself, and afterward did lengthen upward against the cliff, and begin to climb. And lo! I saw that the beast did scent of us, and made to come upward to destroy us. And as the mighty hill of the body did come into length against the great cliffside, the beast set the eye stalks into this cave and that, as it did go, and into all crannies, and so lengthen upward very straight and monstrous and dreadful unto us, and did be as a white and mildewed hill, that had an horrid life. And the stink to come up, so that we did be like to lose our breath with the dreadfulness of it, as you shall think. And surely, for a moment, I looked unto the rocks upon the ledge, and this way and that way, and upward unto the everlasting darkness that did be above us, and again unto the great rock that did seem to quiver upon the edge, as I have told. And I was grown utter desperate in a moment, for, truly, it did seem in that instant that there did be no power in the world that should slay so utter mighty a monster. And immediately, even as I did despair, I had run very swift unto the great rock, and the maid with me, both very strained and shaken with the horror of the thing that did make upward unto us so sure an intent. And I set my strength unto the rock, and heaved, but indeed the rock gave not from the place where it did be, so that I had a dreadful despair, for I saw that it did be more secure than it seemed. And the maid lent her strength unto mine, and we heaved together, with sore pantings, and little cries to guide our endeavors, and because we could not be contained in that moment. And surely it seemed that the great rock moved, and lo! As we strove together to the task, there came a vast and sudden grinding, and the rock to cease from our shoulders, and to be gone from us, or scarce we did what of the happening. And the rock went over, and rushed downward upon the monster, and with mighty crashings, as it did grind and crush the face of the cliffside with a quick and constant thundering. And I caught the maid, as she did stagger upon that dire upward edge, because that she had set her strength so utter to the endeavor, and the rock to be gone so sudden, as you do see, and she to be like to follow after. And she clung unto me, and I to hold her very safe as I looked down upon the falling of the rock. And behold, the great rock smote the monster in the humped part of the back, below of the head, and did enter into the monster, even as a bullet doth strike, and was gone instant from my sight into the vitals. And there came a mighty sound of anguish from the monster, and the monster did loosen from the cliff, and to crumple, as it did seem, and sink backward. And a great steam of dread breathing to go upward from the beast, and a reek, and it made again the strange and horrid noise of pain, and the gorge to be yet full of the echoes of the rock thundering, and with the noise of the rock there was now mingled the horrid sounding of the death crying of the beast. And the gorge to be filled with dull and dreadful echoings, as that 100 monsters died in this place, and that of the darkness in the gorge, and all to be bred of the noise of that mildewed hill a dying. And the echoes ceased not for a while, even after that the monster did be utter quiet, for truly they came presently from far upward and downward of the gorge, out of all the eternity of the night, and to be as that they came backward very faint out of lonesome miles, and out of the strange deepness of unknown caverns of the world. And so in the end to silence, and the far bottom of the gorge to be filled with a white and horrid hill, very dreadful, and that did yet quiver to show the slowness of death. And alway a dreadful reek and stinking to fill all the air, even unto the height, as of the grave. And I stood upward in that far, high place, and held the maid very strong and tender, and she to have covered her ears from that dreadful crying, and to be yet shaken with the greatness and horror of the dying of the monster, and the nearness that she did come unto falling, as you have seen. And presently she came less to tremble, and did weep very easeful, even as a babe doth weep, and I, mayhap, to be not over steady, as you shall think, but yet to have a great gladness set in my heart, and a triumph, and an utter grace of thankfulness. And I held mine own, very tender and sure, as I did say, and she very soon to be eased of her trouble, and the shock to be something gone from her. And she looked up at me, and slipped her arms upward about my neck, and pulled me downward unto her, that she might kiss me. And we to talk then of the going down, and surely this did seem a great and dangerous task, for, truly, we had come upward pretty easy in the excess of our fear, but how we might go down, with our blood cool, I did be all in doubt. Yet, before that we did aught else, I led the maid upward on to the safe part of the ledge, and we sat there, very quiet and weary, and she did be leaned against me. And we eat, each of us, 2 of the tablets, and I to scold and coax mine own to this end, and she to obey and to be better afterward, because that she had eat. And we drank some of the water, and did rest a time longer. And presently, our courage and strength was come back into us, and we packed the scrip again, and the maid set it fast to my back, and we went then to the edge of the shelf, and looked downward, this way and that, and surely, there did be no way to go, save the way we came, only that we might shape our downward climbing to bring us a little below that place where the dead monster did be. And I saw by mine own heart and by the paleness of the maid, that we should do well that we consider the thing no more, but make to the task. And I went immediately over the edge of the shelf, upon my belly, and I bade Nani to follow. And we began then that we go downward, and, in verity, we went downward for, mayhap, a great hour, and I gave help alway unto mine own, as I could, and she did come after me very brave, and made that she hold back her fear, and come downward of that cliff, that did be off like to a mighty wall. And surely, even as we came down, I marveled how we did ever go upward, even though fear did aid us, but, indeed, I do think it doth be easier to climb safely, than to come backward, for this is how I have found. And we made rest thrice upon ledges of the cliff. And afterward came downward again, and alway very slow and with exceeding heat where our hands and our feet did go, that we slipped not suddenly to our death. And once, as I did see, the maid was lost of all her strength, and did be going to fall, because that she did be all gone into a sudden weakness of the head in an instant. And she did be silent, even in that moment, the which doth be marvellous unto me, and to give me a strong pride of her, as you shall understand, if that ever you have loved. And surely, I came upward, in a moment, that little space that was between, and had mine arm about mine own very swift, and held her hard and fierce against the cliff, and this I did that she should feel how that she could never fall, and immediately, her strength and her dear courage came back into her, and I kissed her, there against the mighty cliff, and afterward she did have power again to come downward safe. And presently we were come to the gorge bottom, and maybe 100 paces down the gorge from that place where did be the dead monster, all sunk into an ugly and horrid heap, so great as a small hill. And a dreadful stinking did hang in all that part of the gorge, by reason of the slug, and signs of disgust, as you shall think, and the great and mildewed body of the thing yet to settle and twitch, as I did look, as it did come properly unto death in all that mighty bulk. And everywhere, the skin of the beast did be set into great wrinklings, and horrid blotchings to be upon the improper whiteness thereof, and truly I did be in haste that I turned the maid away from that thing, and that we haste downward of the gorge.